Hey YouTube, we are back again this week for another video portion of the Daly Dose Sports Podcast. Hope everyone out there is staying healthy. Hope you're all doing well. Hey, this week on the Daly Dose YouTube video, we have some sports news that we need to talk. I am seeing something really bizarre taking place in college football. We're going to talk about that. Plus, the NFL is fining teams for their mask use, and we learned this week that Major League Baseball has no soul whatsoever. Let's go ahead and jump into some sports news right now. So first, let's talk about a few things coming out in the world of sports. You know, we're going to be talking college football this week on the Dose, but we are actually going to start this week in college football right now because I have some breaking college football news, kids. College football has officially jumped the shark. And no, it's not for like bad ratings. In fact, Saturday's Clemson versus Notre Dame game crushed the NBA Finals. They pulled in nearly 10 million viewers, so it's not that. And it isn't the cancellation of games or games being on hold. We're not sure which games are going to be played this week. It's not that either. It's not even all of the paying of amateur athletes, which we know is taking place. No, that's not how college football is jumping the shark at all. Do you remember this? Do you remember back in 2017 when the University of Miami broke out their turnover chain? I don't know if you saw this, but Miami broke out this encrusted U emblem that featured 900 orange and green sapphire stones. It was like 5.5 inches. It weighed almost 5 pounds, and they hung it from this big gold chain. And when you got a turnover, the players would run to the sideline and they would present you with this chain, and you got to wear it around and show everyone you had gotten the turnover. Miami wore the link chain very often in 2017. They forced 30 turnovers that year. Pretty good. Well, pretty soon, of course, every team was trying to copy them. We started seeing turnover lunch pails and turnover trash cans. Florida State even started a turnover backpack that like everyone just made fun of because it was so stupid. And it was kind of a true sign how hard Florida State's program had fallen. Well, this past weekend, we had a new entry into the turnover prop thing. And when I say this, you're going to think I'm kidding. I'm not kidding. On Saturday night, the Washington State Cougars beat the Oregon State Beavers 38-28 in the first weekend of Pac-12 football. And in that game, Oregon State defensive back Jaden Grant made an interception. He then ran to the sideline and grabbed the newest college football prop. I swear to you, you can find it on social media. Oregon State has a turnover chainsaw that Grant actually fired up and ran around with. A real live working chainsaw. Like you can see it smoking on the sideline. This is where we are right now. You just know that another school is going to try to top the turnover chainsaw. But I mean, what is even next? Are we going to have a kid like running to the sideline and firing up a table saw? How about a kid goes over to the sideline and gets his flamethrower out, or like an AR-15? Folks, the Matrix in 2020 is clearly broken. College football players are running around on the sideline with real working chainsaws, while other college football players are in quarantine with the sniffles. Just wait until we have a player missing a game because, I don't know, they like lost an arm with that sideline chainsaw. I mean, it's all fun and games until someone loses an appendage, and it does seem like that is coming. Let's move over to the NFL, where the Las Vegas Raiders have been fined $500,000 and stripped of a 6th-round draft pick in the 2021 draft, and Coach John Gruden has been fined an additional $150,000 by the NFL for brazen and repeated violations of COVID-19 protocols. Now, this came after the Raiders had already been docked $250,000, and Gruden had already gotten a $100,000 grant for not wearing his mask properly back in week 2. The team was fined an additional $50,000 for allowing a non-credentialed employee access to the locker room after that game. Also, tight end Darren Waller was fined $30,000, and 9 teammates, including quarterback Derek Carr, also got dinged $15,000 for appearing at a charity event without their masks on and mixing in with the crowd. In total, Las Vegas has already racked up over $1 million in fines for violating COVID protocols, and the Raiders are the first team to actually lose a draft pick over their violations. But I mean, this is kind of what we expect from the Raiders franchise, isn't it? I mean, just win, baby, right? I mean, you had Stickum, and you had late hits, and you had holy rollers, and you had salary cap violations, and you had soaking the field with water to slow down opponents, and Al Davis trolling the opposition prior to games, trying to spy on other teams with his lady glasses on the gold chain. The Raiders have been cheating forever. I mean, Al Davis had 2 rules for the Raiders back in the 70s. Rule number 1, cheating is encouraged. Rule number 2, well, see rule number 1. But the Raiders getting popped for this mask thing, like, it's kind of symbiotic as to how much the Raiders have actually fallen since those glory years. Like, you used to get in trouble for cheating to gain a competitive advantage. Now you're losing a draft pick for silly stuff that doesn't even help you win. But hey, it's good to see the Raiders are maintaining that tradition of excellence for getting into trouble, even though they are no longer even in Oakland. They may have moved to Las Vegas, but they are still trying to get away with things just like they did before. And you know, I've also noticed that the stands in Vegas this season, they look just as full as the stands were in Oakland too. Like 6 or 7 people up there, a lot of tarps covering the seats. Good to see those Raider traditions are continuing. You know, it wasn't just the Raiders that got in trouble for violating COVID protocols. The Pittsburgh Steelers got fined too. They were fined a total of $350,000 for mask violations in a Week 8 win against the Baltimore Ravens. The team was fined $250,000 for not wearing masks. And head coach Mike Tomlin was fined an additional $100,000 for not wearing his mask. Now, you hear that and that doesn't sound like a big deal. We know they have $350,000 to burn, right? And again, a lot of this mask stuff right now, it's purely like theatrical. These teams are being tested constantly, but those are the rules. So you got to follow the rules. But here's what's weird. Mike Tomlin violating the rules. That's the weird part. I mean, Mike Tomlin's a pretty good coach. He has won over 65% of the games he has coached. But he gets in trouble like a lot. Like he's always getting in trouble for something, which is kind of weird. Because Mike Tomlin is a longtime member of the NFL Rules Committee. I've never seen a Rules Committee guy that gets in as much trouble as Tomlin does. You're supposed to be like the hall monitor. You can't be ditching class yourself. Come on, Mike Tomlin, get to class. Stop yelling at everyone else for not going to class when you're standing in the hallway goofing off. Finally, if you have ever wondered if pro sports have any sort of a soul whatsoever, we have further proof that they indeed do not. The Boston Red Sox rehired manager Alex Cora last week. Cora, you'll remember, led the Red Sox to the 2018 World Series title, but then both sides agreed to mutually separate amid the Houston Astros sign-stealing scandal. Cora was suspended for 1 season by MLB for his role in that scandal, but then Boston this last year went 24-36. So they decided to bring Cora back. So they have now signed him to a 2-year contract. It has a 2-year option in 23 and 24. So here's the question. Why did you fire him to begin with? I mean, couldn't you just suspend him? You didn't have to fire him. You did fire him for a reason, right? Oh yeah, you fired him for cheating back when he was with the Astros. But then you hired him back the day that you were allowed to. And do you know why Boston has hired him back? Because the Red Sox watched the Houston Astros, and they cheated, and MLB did nothing. And then they watched former Astros manager A.J. Hinch. He gets hired with the Detroit Tigers, and MLB did nothing. So, I mean, why not bring him back? Major League Baseball isn't going to punish anyone because if they did, it would be admitting that one of their teams cheated to win the World Series. And I think we all know that's not going to happen. They're never going to admit that. Okay, YouTube, make sure that you go over and you check out the rest of the podcast. This week on the show, it is Veterans Day. talk a little bit about the value of veterans in our daily lives. And then we are taking a deeper look at the college football season that is now just past the halfway point. So who are the pleasant surprises? Who are the disappointments? And who are the teams that are truly contending for a national championship this year? We are going to break it all down with a longtime friend of the show. So make sure you go and you check out the full podcast. I will leave a link for it here on YouTube. Hope you're all doing well. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week.